All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive with yours truly.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that's, well, it's kind of a collision of two worlds, sports and politics.
Really interesting combo.
Yeah. Our jumping off point is this blog post I found, written by someone who's clearly a fan of both. And they bring up this really interesting point about November 5th, 2024, saying it's going to be a wild day for fans of, well, fans of both. Can you guess why?
I think the way the author kind of sets the stage
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Yeah.
They start by owning up to being a total dude bro when it comes to sports, but also a hardcore political junkie. It's like this funny, self-aware confession.
Right.
And that's what makes their take on all this so refreshing.
Absolutely. And then they toss in that story about their uncle, who's apparently obsessed with all the LA teams. You know the type. Can rattle off batting averages from like 30 years ago. Maybe you've got someone like that in your family too.
Oh, for sure. But it's a great way to kind of pull the reader in, because then they hit you with this idea that even though sports and politics seem totally different, they actually overlap way more than you might think.
Yeah, and they make some really interesting comparisons. Like, both can spark these crazy heated arguments. Both involve, like, these diehard loyalties. And both tap into our desire for, like, competition and winning.
Exactly.
And the part where they compare trying to understand certain political stances to being the supreme chancellor of the Galactic Republic. I mean, come on, that's pure gold.
Total Star Wars nerd alert.
But it's so true, though. Especially during an election year, it can feel so overwhelming trying to keep up with everything.
Absolutely.
Like you're drowning in information.
The author even mentions feeling that election fatigue already.
Wow.
And it's only going to get more intense as we get closer to 2024.
No kidding.
But here's where the sports tie-in gets really interesting. They suggest that the structure of sports, especially football, can actually be like this comforting anchor in the middle of all the political chaos.
I love that. Because no matter what happens, win or lose, your team's still going to be out there every week. The rules are the same. There's a clear winner and loser. And that predictability can be really grounding.
Totally. Especially when everything else feels so uncertain.
For sure.
And they even point out how the sports media kind of mirrors the political calendar in a way. Like for NFL reporters, the trade deadline is basically their Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. It's all anyone can talk about for like weeks. The rumors, the speculation, the last-minute deals.
High stakes, intense scrutiny. The whole 9 yards.
And speaking of high stakes, this is where things start to get really wild.
Buckle up.
So get this, November 5th, 2024. It's not just any ordinary Tuesday. It's like a triple whammy.
Trifecta.
Election day, obviously.
Right.
But also the NFL trade deadline.
Wow.
And the day the first college football playoff rankings come out.
You're kidding.
Nope. The author actually did this whole time machine analysis.
What do you mean by that?
Like, they went back and looked at historical data. And it turns out this convergence of events has literally never happened before.
That's insane.
So just imagine, you're trying to keep up with election results while also freaking out about potential trades that could, like, make or break your fantasy team. And then, bam, the playoff rankings drop and potentially turn your whole world upside down.
I can't even process all that.
Well, I know, right?
It's too much.
The author captures it perfectly, though.
Like how?
They asked all these questions that I think we're all going to be wrestling with. Like, will your team make that blockbuster trade? Which college teams are going to snag those coveted playoff spots? And most importantly, how are you going to juggle all of this while trying to maintain some semblance of peace with your friends and family who might have completely different political views than you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Seriously, are we supposed to just ignore our loved ones while frantically refreshing Twitter for trade updates and election results?
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Right. It's going to be a very interesting and potentially awkward November 5th. But maybe, just maybe, there's a deeper meaning to all this madness.
You think so?
Well, the author suggests that maybe it's not just a random quirk of the calendar, but a sign of something bigger.
Like what?
I don't know exactly.
Is it a cosmic distraction from all the political tension, a message from the universe, or just some crazy historical alignment where the stars of sports and politics had collided in a way we've never seen before?
Those are some pretty deep questions. And the thing is, this blog post was written before any of us knew who was going to win the election or what the final playoff rankings would look like. So the author and all of us reading it were just kind of suspended in this moment of what if, which makes it even more intriguing.
It's like we were all collectively holding our breath, waiting to see how these different narratives would unfold and potentially intersect.
Exactly.
And remember, this deep dive is coming out just days before this historic November 5th. So you, our listener, are now part of this unfolding story. You're experiencing this convergence in real time.
Isn't that wild?
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
So yeah, November 5th, 2024. Get ready for a day unlike any other.
I'm both excited and terrified at the same time.
Me too. But hey, that's what makes life interesting, right?
I guess so.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to dive even deeper into this fascinating topic. Stay tuned.
And you know what's cool? The author actually throws in this little virtual cookie. For any political fans out there who might have just skimmed through all the sports talk, it's like a peace offering.
It's so clever, right? Like, they get it. Not everyone's going to be equally invested in both worlds.
Exactly.
But there's still this shared curiosity about how it's all going to play out.
And then they hit us with this big question. Is this convergence just a coincidence? Or is it something more? Like, are sports and politics really that different? Or are they just reflections of, like, our shared hopes and anxieties and those tribal loyalties?
Oh, you're getting all philosophical on me now.
Well, think about it. Whether you're rooting for your favorite team or arguing about politics, it often comes down to those same basic human needs. Belonging, a sense of identity, something to believe in.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it kind of makes you see things in a whole new light, like maybe this November 5th. It's not just about the individual events.
It's about something bigger.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all in this crazy thing called life together.
Even when we disagree on the specifics.
And like the author says, no matter who wins or loses, whether it's on the field or in the voting booths, this day is going to go down in history.
A marker of our time.
A moment where those lines between sports and politics, our whole national experience really, got totally blurred.
I mean, just imagine, years from now, you're sitting around with your grandkids, telling them about that one crazy day back in 2024.
You're not going to believe us.
No way.
But it's true. It happened. This collision of worlds, a spectacle unlike anything we've ever seen.
But beyond the stories we'll tell, I think this convergence also raises some big questions about how we process information, how we prioritize our passions.
Yeah, and like, where do we even find meaning in all this chaos?
Exactly.
I mean, how are people going to divide their attention on this day?
Will anyone be able to truly engage in the political process?
Yeah.
While also keeping up with all the sports drama?
Or will one just completely overshadow the other?
And will it affect the outcomes in any way? Like, could a crazy trade or a surprise playoff ranking actually influence people's voting decisions?
Who knows? It's mind-boggling.
Social scientists are going to be studying this for years.
I bet. It's like this one day could have ripple effects that we can't even imagine yet.
It really speaks to the author's point that even in our hyper-connected world, where we're constantly bombarded with information, there are still these moments of genuine surprise, these historical turning points.
And those moments, those intersections, where seemingly unrelated things collide.
Yeah, that's where the best stories are.
The most profound insights.
The most memorable experiences.
So as you navigate this crazy November 5th, dear listener, I want you to keep your eyes open, your mind engaged.
And your sense of wonder intact.
Pay attention to the conversations happening around you. Online, offline, everywhere. Notice how people are reacting to this whole convergence.
You might be surprised by what you observe.
And the insights you glean.
Because at the end of the day, what makes this day so fascinating isn't just the events themselves, it's how they reflect our shared human experience.
It's a reminder that life is full of twists and turns.
And sometimes those seemingly ordinary moments can reveal some pretty profound truths about ourselves and the world we live in.
Makes you think, huh? Is it all just a big coincidence, or is there something more going on here?
Yeah, I mean, are sports and politics really that different, or are they just like two sides of the same coin? You know, reflecting our hopes and fears and all those tribal instincts.
Right. It's like this weird mirror to our collective psyche.
Exactly. And the craziest part is we're living through it right now.
Like, future generations are going to be studying this day.
Trying to make sense of it all.
And we're right here in the thick of it.
I can just picture it. We're telling our grandkids about that time back in 2024.
When the world went completely haywire.
Election night, fantasy football, trades, playoff rankings.
Happening at once.
They'll never believe us.
Nope. But hey, maybe by then we'll finally have an answer to that big question. Can one person actually handle all that stress at the same time?
I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Well, one thing's for sure. No matter what happens on November 5th.
Whether your team wins or loses.
Or gets traded away.
And regardless of who wins the election.
It's going to be a day for the history books.
The author said it best. No matter the outcome, It will certainly be a day like no other.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We've covered a lot of ground today. The humor, the anxiety, the philosophical questions.
The historical implications.
But ultimately, it comes down to you, the listener. How are you going to experience this crazy day?
Will it a distraction? A source of unity? A sign of the times?
Or just a day for the history books?
The choice is yours.
That's it for this deep dive into the wild world of sports and politics. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.